Hello, hello. I am back. Nehemiah here, and I just wanted to quickly talk to you about school portrait photography. And I just wanted to say portrait photography is not my main area of focus of my experience with photography, but I have done some. I've worked at a studio before. So I'm just going to run down through some tips and kind of let you know the thoughts that I have that might be able to help you out with some good portrait photography. So, rule of thirds. I personally love rule of thirds, and I don't know if you've heard of rule of thirds. You may have read the blog that we have on rule of thirds, but if not, it's essentially the grid of your camera will have a few different marks, and you're trying to position them in one of those spots. So it's going to be off center, either about 1/3 or 2/3 of the way into the frame, rather than just right in the middle. And this creates more of an interesting composition, and it won't make the image feel so static or just like, centered and in some ways uninteresting. Not to say that a centered photo can't be interesting, but a lot of times that when you use the rule of thirds, it kind of enhances the design of the photo and will naturally make your eyes travel around the photo and not just look at the subject, but just see how everything is working with the subject. So, we personally, we love rule of thirds. I use it in most of my photos. However, a traditional way of doing portrait photography is to just go ahead and do like the straight on shot. And even if you decide to do that, there are some other things that you need to keep in mind, and we will talk about those that will work whether you're doing rule of thirds or just a traditional straight on shot. So, natural light, do I need to say more? Natural light is always amazing for photos. Anytime you can, you're going to want to use natural light rather than artificial light. So you want to place your child or whoever you're taking photos of near a large window, or if you're outdoors in a shaded area, like under a tree or beside a wall, just so you can avoid those harsh lights that are coming in, and because you don't want like that light to like shine them in the eyes or like get that like glary look that they're gonna have because they can't see. Think of those things. But you're gonna want the light to be soft. Just keep that in mind. You can go out on an overcast day where it's like slightly cloudy to block some of that sun. That might help as well. And I really just want to avoid the overhead light. So you want to steer clear of direct overhead light that's coming right down on their face or around their face, as it might create some shadows on the subject that you don't want there. Background and location is also super important. Do your research. If you're going to go out and do on location photography or portrait photography, you want to know what's around. So do your research, figure out some really great backgrounds that you can use. For example, like maybe you're going to a garden, there's a really nice green garden with flowers or with trees that you think are a really cool design, anything like that. Things to also consider is avoid anything that's too busy, that's going to distract from your subject. So while you want to have a really nice background, you want to make sure that that background is not too cluttered with too much stuff going on, because it just takes away from the subject of the photo. And that's the whole point of taking portrait photography, is that subject. A few other things to consider with the background is, too many times do I see a portrait of somebody where they're standing right next to a pole and the pole is coming out of the back of their head. So just keep little things like that in mind. Moving along from there is, distance from the background. So do you want them to be right in the flowers and everything? No. Do you want them to be 10, 15 feet away from it? No. So you want them to be standing a few feet away from the background so that it doesn't look too flat. It helps create some depth in the photo as well. And then, expressions. posing, that's always so challenging, especially for people who don't naturally work with people consistently for portrait photography. Is getting somebody to smile in a portrait can be really difficult. It's casual poses can help. Just having them stand there, let them be relaxed, rather than having them sit up straight and everything. Like, while you want them to be sitting up straight, you got to let them relax too. So encourage them to smile naturally. Try to make them laugh. Talk about a time maybe that was a really funny time that's just going to bring out that natural laugh. But when you do that, be ready to take that picture. So those are some tips to kind of help get that natural photo. Other things that you can do is candid shots. It's not obviously going to be your traditional portrait photography, but some of the best shots you're going to get are going to be candid. And if they're running around playing on the playground and you're getting a few pictures, maybe they're coming down a slide and they're about to come down like a slide that kind of goes around in circles, you can be positioned at a spot so that it looks like they're looking right at the camera, but they're big old smile on their face. Why? Because they're having a blast. So candid shots can be really great. So keep that in mind, mix that in with some of the traditional shots, and you'll have a really good collection of photographs for your child. Another thing is the subject's body and eyes. When you are taking those photos, let's just make sure that there is space to look into, and that their body isn't pointing directly out of the frame. So you just want to be careful, if you're shooting right on, but they're looking over here. So just the positioning of where their head is, positioning of their body, positioning of their eyes, just making sure that, it's in a good angle. And other things that we want to consider is, are you shooting on an iPhone, or are you shooting on a Galaxy, whatever they're called? I'm an iPhone user, so I don't know what all these other phones are called. Or are you using a point and shoot, a DSLR? There's so many different things that you could be using. I personally shoot almost primarily on a DSLR. While I do snap some shots on the iPhone in a pinch, I prefer to use my other camera. But if you are using, say, an iPhone, there's something called portrait mode, and you have some control over aperture, and you can change the f-stop on it. You can change the lighting to studio lighting, natural lighting. There's a whole bunch of different settings. But test that out, because you can create a really awesome blurred background. And with that, it just really helps you hone in and focus on the subject, and it blurs everything out naturally, and it looks really good. So, for an iPhone photo, I thought they did a really great job with that portrait feature. That is probably one of the features on my phone that when I am using it for photos, I use that one a lot. And grid lines. So we talked about rule of thirds earlier. So how can you make doing rule of thirds easier if it's not something you've been doing for a long time, and just you almost see the grid even when it's not there? Turn it on. So with the iPhone, you can just go to Settings, Camera, and Grid, and go ahead and turn that on. Will help you with the composition and the overall photographic design of your pictures. So if you want to keep your son centered, or your daughter centered, or whoever the subject is centered, you can do that easily with the grid. Alternatively, if you want to test out rule of thirds, you can very easily move it over a third in one of the directions and get the shot that you want. So, moving on from that, exposure control, we talked about it a little bit earlier. When you are taking pictures, when you tap on the target, or the subject, and it focuses on that subject, you can actually kind of swipe down with or slide your finger down, and it will adjust the brightness, which will kind of help with the exposure. So you want to aim for bright, but you don't want to overexpose. Otherwise, it'll blow out and it won't look very good. So you can play with that. One thing that I like to do is take multiple different pictures of the same spot with different levels of light. That way you can decide which one looks best, because when you're in a pinch and you're trying to do it really quickly, it's hard to get them back and do that same pose. So if you get one a little overexposed, one right on, one a little bit underexposed, one of those three images should work pretty well. And when you're planning for that outing, another thing to consider is clothing and style. Where are you going? Are you going somewhere like a garden? Are you going to a park? Just keep those things in mind so that when they dress, it can complement the area that they're going to be in. So, like maybe solid colors or simple patterns is going to complement the background that you're at. So, just make sure that you dress appropriately for what you're going to be doing. I would say avoid any shirts with big logos, lots of words on it, bright or clashing patterns, just because it's going to distract you from the photo. Like the focus is going to be the subject's face in a portrait, so you don't want shirts with all of these words, phrases, quotes, all of this stuff to take away from your portrait. So lastly, editing the photo. It can be very daunting to edit a photo well, but the editing software has come such an amazingly long way. Even on the iPhone, there is lots of built-in options for editing the brightness, the contrast, sharpness, definition. There's just so much that you can do. You can apply filters to it. And then there's other options such as Lightroom. I'm a big fan of Adobe Lightroom. There's actually a free version on the phone that you can download, and there is a ton that you can do with that. They have some AI features in there for removing things from the background and that sort of thing. So experiment with that, and maybe a later time we can share some tips on Lightroom and how to edit in Lightroom. Maybe you can check out some of the presets that they have. There are different portrait presets for different scenarios that you can just automatically edit your photo based on that preset and then just adjust it a little bit as needed from there. So that's all of the tips that I have today. I hope this has been helpful, enlightening to you, and if there are any other questions, feel free to reach out to us. We would love to keep engaged on this topic and help you further if you need it. So again, I'm Nehemiah, and you have a great day. Bye.